Hi, my name is Frank. Welcome to Vinyl Dens, a really cool segment, I think, here on channel 33 RPM, where we check out vinyl community music rooms from across the world. Some really good ones in today's episode. So without further ado, let's check them out. First one comes from Sean Magee. Check this room out. I like this panoramic view of it. Sean says, I am 42 years old and live north of Woodstock, Ontario. So he's a fellow Canadian. He says he really started putting his collection together as soon as he had an allowance. He says he now has about 1,800 records and 700 CDs. He says his collection is mostly rock in all of its many forms. His main system is a Project debut carbon turntable, a very popular turntable in the YouTube vinyl community. I have one myself. I dig it. And his is equipped with an Ortofon 2M Blue stylus, just as mine is. If anyone has a red Ortofon and they're thinking of the upgrade, it is well worth the extra bucks. He says he runs it through some Rotel receiver from the 90s and Canadian-made Mirage 750 speakers from the 1980s. Other than the turntable, everything was on the cheapish side. He says he got it used. What else does Sean say? He says, we just moved into our home last summer. It is a nice oasis and a crazy home. Okay, he's talking about his music room. He says his music room is a nice oasis and a crazy home. My 2-year-old son and 6-year-old daughter. My wife and I escape down there once the kids are asleep. I can relate to that, my friend. So I want to go through some of these photos in a little more detail. There's the sitting area, so that looks super comfortable. I dig those record shelves. Now, are those the IKEA shelves? They must be. They look very similar. I haven't seen that particular finish, but maybe I am not looking close enough. See, there's a baseball bat up there. It's either for intruders or must be some significance to it. Dig it. This, there's some figurines too. He's got some Beatles Yellow Submarine stuff and whatnot. Some CDs and some books. I love snooping through these music rooms. There's the speakers. Again, those speakers are Mirage 750 speakers, Canadian. The Canadian speaker manufacturers, particularly in the 80s, there are a number of brands back then that are doing such a great job. It looks like an awesome chill zone, Sean, to get away from the kids once they're gone to sleep. I dig it. You've put a lot of time and effort and thought into this, and it looks amazing, my friend. This next one comes from a fellow who goes by Pip Co, and Pip Co has not left his full name or his age, but what he has indicated is that he's Canadian, another fellow Canuck. So let's see what Pip Co has to say in here. He says, I've been a collector since the mid-70s, but my first 45 was the Canada Centennial 45. He says, my father bought that for me in 1967, but a year later I found a bunch of new 45s in a river. A bunch of new 45s in a river. How often, that leads to all sorts of other questions. 45s in a river, I mean, are they playable? Are they wet? Like, how do they get in the river? Anyway, I'm sure there's a story there. He says he has approximately 8,000 12-inch records, 1,600 45s, 110 10-inch records, 3,600 CDs. Wow, a lot of stuff. His gear is a Macintosh integrated amp. This is a really cool turntable, a JVC QL A75 with, again, here we go, an Ortofon 2M Blue. Another member of the club. Actually, I'm just going to go right to these photos because I'm talking about this. Those speakers. Did I just mention those speakers? Okay, that's what I was going to talk about next. They are Tecton Pendragon speakers. Those look like monsters, man. What else does he have in his photos? Wow, this is a bit blurry, but look at the long shot of this room and how amazing that looks. Which one of us would not want to hang out in this room? Wow, it's like a library, man. Let this sink in, guys. Pip Co, man, don't know where you live, don't know your full name, but you have a room, man. Absolutely dig it. Cheers. All right, what do we have next here? Whoa, well, check out this wall of CDs. How cool is that? This comes from Oliver from Austria. in Europe, 40 years old. What does Oliver say? He says, I'm sending you pics of my little nerd den. I call it a record room or music room. I like the title Nerd Den as well, because that's what many of us are, myself included. Oliver says he started collecting CDs when he was 12 years old. He has several thousand now. He's been collecting vinyl since 2008 and has 750 records. He also collects movies, TV shows, books, comic books, and video games. Says his tastes are quite diverse. Alternative, indie, metal, hard rock, jazz, funk, hip-hop, and even some electronic genres. It's all beauty of music collecting, and the further you dive into it, the more genres and the more things you discover. That was sort of my journey as well, you know, starting out with metal and hard rock, and now moving into jazz and funk, and I've always kind of been into blues and whatnot. Electronic, that's one thing I've never really experimented with or gotten into too much. Oliver's setup is a Marantz PM 6005. I have, what's mine? 6004. So I have the one that was just the series just before that one. Marantz CD player, 6005. Marantz, even to this day, are making great audio gear. I love mine. It's got a Riga RP1 turntable and some bookshelf speakers by a company called Project Speakerbox. Not familiar with that. And the cartridge is a Rega Carbon. I always have trouble with that Riga. I don't know why. I don't know why that one, I stumbled upon that one, but I do. He says he's living in a small flat, therefore there isn't that much space, and the man cave has to be compact. Hey man, some of the best things come in small spaces. And you've done a really good job here of packing the room. I'm just going to take another close look at this. Like even these movies. I wouldn't say I'm a movie buff, but I definitely dig movies. 1980s comedy, and I like horror of all sorts. I love horror movies, slasher movies, suspense movies, but a lot of modern horror I find just over the top. It's like the really scary stuff in horror movies is what you think is happening, like the frights in your mind. I don't care about the gore so much. Anyway, this looks great. Wow, and again, those CDs, that just blows my mind. Like so many people have written off the CD nowadays, and it's so unfortunate. I still remember the excitement of getting my first CD when I was in high school. I still dig them to this day. Love it. Looks cool, man. And you've really done a good job of making the best, as you say, of this compact space. So Oliver, thank you for your contribution. Dig it, man. And I'm sure this is an awesome place to hang out. Enjoy, my friend. All right, this next one is also from Austria. This one comes from my pal, Chris. And, all right, so he sent this in last year. First of all, I gotta say, Chris is a cool dude. I will actually show you or leave his Twitter handle here because I talk on Twitter all the time, and Chris has actually been able to track down a couple of my wanted records for me out in Austria, so that's great. So Chris is 34, or again he was at the time he sent this. He has about 1,200 LPs and 345. His main turntable is a Technics SL1210 MK2. This is a turntable I've always admired, and I've wanted one now for a few years, and it's, you know, people associate that particular turntable with DJing, and is obviously the most popular turntable there is with DJs, but you got to remember it started off as a hi-fi record player, hi-fi turntable, and these things are a beast. They're monsters, and my goal for 2020 is to get one. Chris also has Marantz PM 6006 and the Marantz CD 5005. Welcome to the club. I love that gear. And the speakers, I've never heard of these, are Grundig 660s from the early 80s. I love the look of the black Technics or Techniques, depending on your preferred pronunciation. I love the black, I think, over the silver. I'm trying to still decide whether I go for black or silver. Pardon me. Look at these records Chris has on display. That's one thing we have in common. We both dig soundtracks, but Chris is really a connoisseur. He just seeks out the best stuff. But is that a Terminator soundtrack? I have never seen that in the wild or on the internet. That's amazing. And Halloween 3, that's another thing me and Chris share in common. We love the original Halloween series, and a lot of people wrote off Halloween 3 because that's the one without Michael Myers, but I really dig that one. And what's that jingle gets in your head, it's stuck there for a day. I'm not gonna. Those of you who've seen the movie know what I'm talking about, but that's an original pressing. Those go for an arm and a leg. Love it. Let's check out some of Chris's other pictures here. Got his records and his 45s out here on his record stand, on his IKEA stand. I love the ladies in this one. That's cool. Look at this. This is really neat. He's kind of hanging 45 picture sleeves on the wall. I've never seen that before. That is an ingenious way, Chris, to store them. I'm not sure what those particular hanging sleeves are, but I really dig that. Acoustic guitar posters on the wall. The Lost Empire. Some more records there, and a really comfortable chair. You got the remote, and yeah, it looks really comfortable. Anyway, I dig it. Rock and roll poster on the wall, and again, there is the larger shot of the room. Again, it's compact. That's the other thing. You don't need a lot of space to have a really nice record room. My room, again, it's not the nicest one out there, far from it, but it's 10 feet by 10 feet, and I think I've made very good use of it, and Chris, you obviously have here as well. So, dig it, man. Chris, thank you for sharing the photos. All right, this next one comes from my buddy Jason Sampson in Australia. Jason has a very cool YouTube channel. His focus is not on records or music per se, it's on wine. It's Bogan's Guide to Wine. And I love my red wine, but I'm far from being an expert on that topic. So I love Jason's channel just for the simple fact that I learn a lot about wine. Plus, long hair, he's a rocker and he's into wine. So, I love wine, I love rock. So that's cool. Anyway, what does Jason write here? He says, mine is less a music room and more a home office. I have just a whisker under 1,000 records and have a unique storage solution. Let's go to his storage solution here. He says he has 2 large display cabinets, which he upturned on their side to give more of a record store style access to his records. It says it's heaps easier and more satisfying this way to flip through the collection. I kind of agree. So it's basically, I don't know if it's an IKEA cabinet, but something similar, but instead of being upright like these, it's flipped over so you can go through the records like that. So very cool, Jason. Says his room also houses his boxed away CD and DVD collection. Bring them out, man. Bring those CDs out. I had mine in the closet for the longest time. I'm happy to finally have them back out here. We got horror bobbleheads. Again, more themes. A bunch of you guys are into horror, as am I. Comics, graphic novels, autograph posters, and general shit not welcome in the house. So let's look through some of these. So there's the turntable. It looks like an Audio Technica and some Silverface Sanios. He's got the integrated amp, he's got the tuner and the cassette deck with easy access from his chair. Great place to chill with that red wine. So here's some of the horror bobbleheads. He's got Freddy, Jason, Alien. I see Arnold there. I see Michael Myers. On top, R2-D2, Yoda. Anyway, you get lost in here forever. Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction is probably my favorite movie of all time. Jason also has an iMac. I see Nirvana, Jay and Silent Bob, AC/DC. That record looks signed. I love it, man. I could hang out here again for hours. If I'm ever in Australia, man, Jason, I gotta look you up, man. This rocks. A very cool music room. And this next one comes from my pal Paul Cain from Phoenix, Arizona, USA. Let's see what Paul has to say. Paul says he's been buying records since 1973. That's the year I was born. His first record was K-Tel's Fantastic. Very cool. He says he has several hundred tapes, a few thousand LPs, and a boatload of compact discs. Don't know how many, but most are in boxes and bins in a storage closet. What I know after talking to Paul for years via comments and whatnot is that he loves hitting the thrift stores and looking for records and gear in that way, and he's accumulated quite the collection. I'm going to go to this photo here, this long shot. The turntable on top, I believe, is his Technics SL1350, which I'm not familiar with. And on there, he has a Stanton 890 SA cartridge, I think is similar to the Pickering I have on that one. Very classic, very warm sounding, beautiful, beautiful cartridge. So, I mean, he's got boxes and shelves and graphic equalizers. That looks like a Kenwood. Very similar to my Kenwood integrated amp. Again, a wall of records. This is fantastic. And of course, the Fisher-Price music box player. This reminds Paul of his roots and where he came from. I think many of us started off on this particular record player, playing those little plastic Fisher-Price discs. I wish I still had mine. Beautiful tapes. Whoa! Whoa! Look at this. Look at this wall of tapes. Wow. Some of these look blank. Some look like they're still sealed. This is amazing. I'm in awe. I don't think I've ever seen a wall of tapes like this. Paul, man, I am envious. I'm envious. Paul has said to me a couple times, if I'm ever in the Phoenix area, we'll hook up and go record shopping. And I'm sure one of these days I will get there, man, even just to see that wall of cassettes. Great job, Paul. All right, that's today's roundup of record rooms from across the world. That's this episode of Vinyl Dens. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you want to be considered for a future episode of Record Dens, send me 4, 5, 6 shots, clear shots of your music room, along with a little bit of information about yourself, your name, your age, where you live, a description of how long you've been collecting for, some of your gear, and anything else you feel is relative, and send that information to me at channel33rpm@gmail.com. That's channel33rpm@gmail.com. Remember, leave a quick like if you enjoyed today's episode. Otherwise, dear 33ers, I hope you have a fantastic week. Until next time, keep on spinning.